We are not going to let them get away with this. We are not. If these puppet politicians want to represent billionaires instead of the people, then they should lose their jobs in the people's house. So they may not want to have the town hall, but we're having it here. Let's talk about what they don't want to talk about, starting with Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. You can understand the whole Doge scam with just two numbers. First number, $8 million a day. Elon Musk gets in government contracts $8 million a day for himself. The second number is $65 a day. $65 a day is how much a senior who's worked their entire life gets to survive on Social Security. $8 million a day, $65 a day. If they were looking for efficiency, wouldn't they look into Musk's billions of dollars, or the billions of dollars Big Pharma milks from the taxpayers, or the billions of dollars that big tech screws us out of? They don't want to look into that because those corporations fund their campaigns. That's not right. It's not right. They want to come after programs for working people. They get their $8 million a day while they try to cut food stamps for the working class. While Elon Musk makes his $8 million a day in government contracts, he's coming after your grandma's $65 a day. While Musk gets his $8 million a day, he's trying to shut down the Department of Education, trying to shut down the Department of Labor. Musk wants you to work more hours to make him more rich. Musk wants you to pay more taxes to make him more rich.
It is very easy to get under Donald Trump's skin, but some Democrats are able to take that one step further and live rent-free in his mind. And that is clearly what Governor Tim Walz is doing right now. Because not only is Donald Trump talking and tweeting about him all the time, he's now threatening Tim Walz, which seems like the most common practice of this administration. But he's also wishing violence upon him. It is crazy. The meltdown he just had on an episode of a conservative podcast. We're going to get into it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, there are a few reasons why Donald Trump is so upset with Tim Walz, but I want to quickly play two clips that I think drove him to say what he did. This violent attack on Tim Walz. These two clips right here.
Have they figured it out that the identity piece of this is more important than the actual substance behind it?
Well, they've been doing it for decades. I mean, we've saw the welfare queens. They've seen the Southern strategy. We've seen it over and over. It's an old playbook, and we're as dumb as we want to be that we allow them to do this with CRT and ESG and DEI and every three-letter word.
And then they demonize people.
Yeah, demonize, and they weaponize grievance. They other people. They talk down to people, past people. They humiliate people. They weaponize difficult issues. But the bottom line is, and I think it goes back to what we began with, is, and I applaud you for this, is we cannot continue to be on the defense reacting to this. We've got to go on the offense. We got to meet people where they are. But I also think this, and this is where, this is part of the conversation I'm trying to have, is you got to respect people you disagree with, and you can't just dismiss people.
How do you fight it?
This
I think I could kick most of their ass. I do think that if they wanted to. I know I can run them, but I don't know if we're going to fall into that place where we want to. Okay, we challenge you to a WWE fight here type of thing.
No, but it's a natural reaction. I think it's one of the reasons we're losing so many men. And again, it's multi-ethnic. It's not just white men. We're losing them. We're losing them to these guys online. We're losing them people that I'm bringing on this podcast as well. That's why I brought.
These are bad guys, though. These are bad guys.
But they exist, and we could deny they exist. They exist. Not only they exist, they persist, and they're actually influencing young kids every single day.
How do we push some of those guys back under a rock?
I think we have to first understand what their motivations are. I think we have to understand what they're actually doing. And
you don't
I think
that's racism and misogyny?
I think there's a lot of that, but I don't think it's exclusively that. When you talk to a guy like Steve Bannon, he talks about working folks, and he talks about how we hollowed out the industrial core of this country. I understand that. But so we can dismiss the notion of election denialism. We could completely dismiss what he did on January 6th, but I don't think you can dismiss What he's saying reminds me a lot of what Bernie Sanders was saying, reminds me a lot of what Democrats said 20, 30 years ago.
I'm going to go use the platform that I have and hand them the megaphone to talk about this. I wouldn't do those town halls if I were them either, because they have to defend cutting Medicare, cutting Medicaid, hurting their local public school, fighting a trade war with Canada, just the nonsense, and defending President Musk. So I lived through these in 2010 when the Tea Party was there, and they're telling them that these are outside agitators. I heard a few Democrats in 2010 try and say, oh, don't worry about it, these are outside agitators. They were not. They were my neighbors. Right. And they were mad and confused about what was going to happen. Now, did the Republicans gin those up? Yeah, they threw fuel on that fire. I'm going to go out there and make sure that those folks down in Iowa know that their rep doesn't want to come talk to him, but he voted for this stuff. He voted to defund these things. He voted to make it impossible to talk to the VA and cut 70,000 people to care for our veterans. By the way, many of those 70,000 veterans themselves. So I think, again, this is us going out and talking to people, making the case that people are absolutely clear that both parties are not the same. One stands with Elon Musk, the billionaires, and the dismantling of America as we know it, and one that's going to be there for their families. And if we're not out there, Donald Trump, all the podcasts, all the money will fill that void. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going. And if they ask, I'll go. And look, I hope people show up at that town hall and say, look, Governor, what are you offering? Are you offering anything better? That's fair. But not to turn your back and not do it, it's dangerous. Dangerous.
So obviously, Donald Trump is pretty furious about the fact that Tim Walz is bringing attention to his attacks on Social Security and Medicaid, as well as Elon Musk, breaking some of the most important institutions and agencies in our government. That is obviously riling him up, but I think Tim Walz stating, what I also believe, that he could probably beat most Trump supporters up is really what set him off. In an interview with Clay Travis of Outkick, a conservative sports media outlet, Donald Trump responded to Tim Walz's statement in a way that was pretty shocking.
You saw Tim Walz. I know you talked about Tim Walz saying he could beat up Trump supporters. Did you see Caitlyn Jenner said that she thought she would be able to take him? Who would you take in a battle, Caitlyn Jenner or Tim Walz?
Caitlyn all day long, but I also have Kane.
Yeah.
How about Kane?
Oh, Glenn is an awesome guy. He challenged him. I put up 10 grand for that too. And the challenge is, I don't think Tim Walz has responded
yet. By the way, that wouldn't last a second. He's like 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
He's the biggest human being.
He's an awesome guy.
He's a great guy too. He's a mayor of a town and he's all MAGA.
So Donald Trump wants Tim Walz to be thrown in the ring with some retired, crazy MAGA wrestler, and he wants to see him get beat up. Now, I know some conservatives are probably going to clip this and say, oh, the left is saying that Tim Walz is allowed to beat up MAGA. But Trump can't say Tim Walz didn't say that. He did say he could probably beat them up, which is a true assessment of these fake alpha males that are really just misogynistic freaks in MAGA. That is their actual base, especially among young men in my generation, unfortunately. What Donald Trump is saying is that he'd like that to happen. He'd like to see it. And he's also coming from the position of a guy who sent a violent mob to attack the Capitol. So I think we need to take his threats a little more seriously than Tim Walz making a joke about how many losers are in Donald Trump's cult of personality. I think there's a big difference there. But like I said, this wasn't the only attack or threat that we've seen. Donald Trump levy against Tim Walz. However, the one he made most recently was probably his stupidest. I know, that's a high or I guess low bar. But I want to take a look at it and then give a couple of bits of commentary.
Tim Walz is now saying about Trump supporters, and forgive me, I'm just reading a quote from Tim Walz, I think I could kick most of their ass.
Oh boy, he'd be in trouble.
Is there any way to know?
Well, he's a loser. The guy's a loser. He lost an election. He played a part. Usually a vice president doesn't play a part, they say. I think Tim played a part. I think he was so bad that he hurt her. But she hurt herself, and Joe hurt them both. They didn't have a great group, but I would probably put him at the bottom of the group.
I think it's important to point out, and I'm saying this with love for Kamala Harris, that Tim Walz was the only person with a positive approval rating on either ticket in the presidential race. I think Tim Walz had something like a +5 approval rating. People really like Tim Walz. So this argument from MAGA that he's some Democratic loser and that people rejected him at the ballot box, rather than acknowledging they were flooded with misinformation, and lies that led them to vote for Donald Trump is just downright ridiculous. People like Tim Walz, that's why he's out on the road. That's why he's drawing huge crowds. That's why he was so great at speaking to Republican voters. He's a normal guy who used a very small Democratic majority in his state to pass some of the most important and progressive legislation we've seen out of any Democratic state. So yeah, people like Tim Walz, they like the guy who wants to feed kids, make sure parental leave is protected, and hold corporations accountable, while still running one of the best states for business in the country. Tim Walz is good at this. Donald Trump is not. I don't know how you could say that he's the one with the bad approval rating when yours is tanking so badly that your own Republican members of Congress have to run from their own town halls. And of course, that has been one of the biggest action items we've seen lately for Democrats, with AOC, obviously Tim Walz, Bernie, and Ro Khanna just yesterday speaking out against Republicans in their own districts. But we also saw someone who is a friend of this show, Greg Casar, out there with AOC, actually announcing that as the leader of the Progressive Caucus in the House, he is sending House progressives into Republican districts. And with that news, I just think it's only right that we check out a clip from Greg on the road right here.
We are not going to let them get away with this. We are not. If these puppet politicians want to represent billionaires instead of the people, then they should lose their jobs in the people's house. So they may not want to have the town hall, but we're having it here. Let's talk about what they don't want to talk about, starting with Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. You can understand the whole Doge scam with just two numbers. First number, $8 million a day. Elon Musk gets in government contracts $8 million a day for himself. The second number is $65 a day. $65 a day is how much a senior who's worked their entire life gets to survive on Social Security. $8 million a day, $65 a day. If they were looking for efficiency, wouldn't they look into Musk's billions of dollars, or the billions of dollars Big Pharma milks from the taxpayers, or the billions of dollars that big tech screws us out of? They don't want to look into that because those corporations fund their campaigns. That's not right. It's not right. They want to come after programs for working people. They get their $8 million a day while they try to cut food stamps for the working class. While Elon Musk makes his $8 million a day in government contracts, he's coming after your grandma's $65 a day. While Musk gets his $8 million a day, he's trying to shut down the Department of Education, trying to shut down the Department of Labor. Musk wants you to work more hours to make him more rich. Musk wants you to pay more taxes to make him more rich. Tucson, I've had enough of this. It's time to say, fire Elon Musk. Fire who? Fire who? Don't fire public school teachers. Fire who? Don't fire nurses. Fire who? Don't fire our veterans. Fire who? Fire who? Well, it's time to talk about how we're going to do it, Tucson. You see, there's this debate happening in Washington, D.C. right now about how we should respond to the oligarchy. There are those, a general strike would be pretty good. I heard that at our town hall. There are those who say that politicians of conscience should just roll over and play dead. That's their words. And then there's those that say we should stand and fight. Anybody here think we should roll over and play dead? Anybody? No roll over and play dead people over here, over there? Well, Bernie Sanders is here to stand and fight. AOC is here to stand and fight. I hear some people already.
I really think that Greg is certainly an underrated fighter in voice, and we saw that on Fox. I loved his call out of Elon Musk, with Fox saying something like, well, no one's ever been as smart as Elon, or whatever nonsense they tried to say. And then Greg Casar just goes, well, actually, no one's ever donated $250 million to someone's campaign. So maybe that's the reason Trump is keeping him around. Not because he's smart, which he's not, Greg Casar is great. Love, love, love the work he's doing. That's why we're going to continue to bring him on this show. Bring him on this show. We're glad to have him on this show. You know what? We could say we're bringing him on this show. Y'all tune in. Y'all enjoy this platform. And we want to use it to elevate as many Democrats as possible. Certainly Greg Casar's voice. Big fan of his. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you.